The fluorescent hum of the airplane restroom door clicked shut behind me, but it wasn't the lock that pinned me in place. It was the stranger's hand, rough and urgent, slamming against the wall inches from my head. "You think you can just stare at me like that for 8 hours and walk away?" His voice rasped, low and laced with whiskey from the crew's pre-flight pour. His blue eyes wild under the harsh light, pinning me like a butterfly to cork. My heart jackhammered against my ribs, the recycled air thick with the scent of his cologne. Cedar and sin, and in that coffin-sized space 30,000 feet above the Rockies, I realized this flight from Denver to New York was about to crash and burn in ways no black box could ever explain. His name was Alex. I'd learned that much from the safety demo, his voice smooth over the intercom like aged bourbon cutting through turbulence. But now, crammed in here with the sink dripping like a guilty conscience, he wasn't the polished flight attendant in the crisp Navy uniform anymore. He was a storm, breath hot against my neck, fingers twisting into the front of my hoodie, yanking me closer until our bodies collided with the force of 2 lives derailed midair. "Dylan," he growled, reading my boarding pass like it was a love letter. "I've been watching you watch me since takeoff. That little smile when I handed you the ginger ale? It's been killing me." And then, without warning, he kissed me. Not soft, not tentative, but like a man who'd been starving in first class, devouring the only meal that mattered. I gasped into his mouth, the taste of peppermint gum and forbidden thrill exploding on my tongue, my hands fumbling up to grip his shoulders, the epaulets on his jacket digging into my palms like badges of this reckless mutiny. The plane jolted then. A pocket of air current that rattled the mirror and sent us stumbling, his knee wedging between my thighs, pressing just hard enough to make my vision blur. "We can't," I whispered, even as my body betrayed me, arching into him, the lie dying on my lips because God, we absolutely could, and the shocking part? I wanted to. 32 rows of oblivious passengers out there, sipping their overpriced wines, while in here, a complete stranger was unraveling me thread by thread, his hand sliding down to cup my jaw, thumb tracing the scar on my chin from that dumb skateboarding wipeout back in high school. "Why not?" he murmured, pulling back just enough to search my eyes, his own stormy with something deeper than lust, hurt, maybe, or the echo of 1,000 lonely layovers. "Life's too short for seatbelt signs, Dylan. Tell me you feel it too." I did feel it, Jesus, did I ever. It hit me like the descent into LaGuardia, that freefall rush where your stomach drops and your soul screams yes. But as his lips crashed back into mine, hungrier now, teeth grazing my lower lip in a bite that drew a moan I couldn't stifle, I couldn't shake the whisper in my head. This is how it starts, the beautiful disasters we chase because safe feels like suffocating. The door rattled, someone knocking, a muffled "occupied" from Alex that came out too sharp, too possessive, and in that split second, I saw it. The vulnerability cracking through his bravado, the way his free hand trembled against the sink, like he was holding on for dear life. Not to me, but to whatever ghost had taught him to grab love in bathrooms instead of ballrooms. My own ghosts crowded in then. Evan's ghost, mostly, the ex who'd promised forever in a Brooklyn brownstone and left with my trust fund dreams and a post-it note on the fridge. "One more time," I breathed, tangling my fingers in his hair, pulling him deeper because screw it. This was my rebellion, my mid-flight epiphany. Sometimes the turbulence is the point. We broke apart gasping when the knock turned insistent, the flight attendant in him snapping back like a rubber band, straightening his tie with one hand, the other lingering on my waist a beat too long. "Go first," he said, voice husky, eyes promising we'd finish this conversation in the galley after lights out. I nodded, heart pounding like I'd just run the Boston Marathon, splashing water on my face to erase the flush, the swell of my lips, stepping out into the dim cabin, past the snoring businessman in 14C. I felt every eye on me even though no one was looking, or were they? Paranoia prickled my skin as I slid back into my window seat, the Rockies below a jagged black silhouette against the starry void. Alex passed minutes later, his smile professional as he dimmed the overheads. But when our gazes locked over the dozing heads, it was electric, a secret shared in the language of stolen glances. Sleep wouldn't come, of course. Not with the phantom press of his body still ghosting mine, the what-ifs swirling like contrails. Who was he, really? A Midwestern boy turned sky gypsy, chasing sunrises from LAX to JFK, or something more broken? Like me? I'd come to Denver for a cousin's wedding. Ironic, A straight-laced affair in the shadow of the mountains where I'd buried my queerness under flannel and forced laughs. Evan had texted that morning, casual as cancer. Miss you in the city. Drinks soon? As if he hadn't gutted me 2 years ago, walking out because the optics of my activism gigs at queer youth centers didn't play well with his Wall Street brothers. I deleted it, boarded this bird to escape, not ignite. Yet here I was, replaying that kiss like a loop on my phone's hidden folder. The one with all the half-written poems about men who leave. Hours blurred into that liminal haze of red-eye flights, the kind where time stretches like taffy and regrets congeal. Around 2 a.m. Mountain Time, the seatbelt sign pinged off, and there he was, Alex, slipping into the jump seat across the aisle, his uniform jacket slung over one arm, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms dusted with that golden hair that caught the emergency lights. "Can't sleep either?" he whispered, leaning in with a blanket draped like a shield. Our knees brushed under the shared armrest, a spark that jumped straight to my core. "Not after that," I admitted, voice barely above the engine's drone. He chuckled, low and self-deprecating, rubbing the back of his neck. A gesture so boyish it humanized him, stripped the myth. "Yeah, well, protocol's a bitch. But you looked like you needed shaking up." We talked then, in that conspiratorial murmur of insomniacs, words weaving through the dark like contraband. He was from a nowhere town in Ohio, son of a steel mill dad who'd called him soft one too many times before the plant shuttered, and so did their talks. Flight attendant life was his escape hatch, free miles to anywhere but home. A uniform that let him blend while screaming his queerness in subtle ways. The rainbow pin on his lanyard, the way he'd linger with the nervous first-timers, offering extra pillows like lifelines. "It's lonely up here," he confessed, eyes on the clouds outside. "All these altitudes, but no one's really seeing you." I got it, bone deep. My days coding apps for nonprofits in a co-working space in Queens, nights volunteering at the center, patching kids' wounds with stories of survival. "Same on the ground," I said, our fingers brushing accidental on purpose. "You build walls so high, even the ladders break." The attraction simmered, then boiled. His laugh at my dumb joke about turbulence being God's way of saying, "Buckle up, buttercup." The way he'd trace patterns on the armrest with his thumb, mirroring mine. By dawn's first blush painting the horizon peach, we'd swapped numbers. His scrawled on a cocktail napkin. Mine tapped into his phone under the guise of emergency contact. "Land with me?" he asked as the captain announced descent. His voice casual but eyes pleading. New York waited below, my empty sublet and Evan's shadow, but up here, possibility hummed like the landing gear. "Yeah," I said, simple as that, and when the wheels kissed tarmac at JFK, it felt like fate's first honest touch. But New York has teeth, and ours sank in fast. Alex's layover was 48 hours, enough time for coffee at a hole in the wall in Astoria, where he confessed over burnt bagels that the bathroom kiss wasn't his first mid-flight felony. "Once in the lav over the Atlantic," he grinned, sheepish. "With a pilot who ghosted me in Dublin." Jealousy flickered, irrational and hot, but I swallowed it with my latte, sharing my own war stories. The grinder hookup that turned into a therapy session. The pride parade where Evan proposed we take a break, amid the floats and feathers. "He didn't deserve you," Alex said, fierce, his hand covering mine across the sticky table, thumb stroking my knuckles like a vow. We walked the East River after, wind whipping off the water, his arms slung around my shoulders casual as breathing, and for the first time since the split, I didn't flinch from touch. That night, in my cramped apartment with the fire escape view of brick and buzz, we tumbled into bed. Not frantic like the plane, but slow, exploratory, mapping each other's scars with lips and whispers. His body was lean from hauling luggage carts, freckles dusting his chest like stars, and when he arched under me, gasping my name like prayer, I thought, this could be real, this could heal. It was for a stolen weekend. Mornings tangled in sheets that smelled of us. Lazy brunches at diners where he'd steal my fries and I'd steal kisses at stoplights. We talked dreams, his of settling in Seattle for the rain and the rainbows, mine of expanding the app to connect queer diaspora across states. "You're building bridges," he said one evening on my couch, head in my lap as some indie flick droned on Netflix, while I'm just jumping them. Vulnerability cracked him open then, stories spilling. The dad who found his diary at 16, the punch that followed, the bus ticket to NYC he bought with lunch money. I held him through it, fingers combing his hair, murmuring the truths Evan never heard. You're enough. You're seen. Laughter healed too, his impression of the purser with the comb-over, my tales of coding fails that crashed servers mid-donation drive. By Sunday night, as he packed for his red-eye to LAX, the ache was physical, a bruise blooming under my breastbone. Come visit, he begged at the door, kissing me deep enough to bruise lips. Or I'll hijack a flight back. I promised, watching his cab vanish into the Queen's night, already plotting PTO for the West Coast. Weeks blurred into a rhythm of FaceTime calls at odd hours. Him in hotel lobbies from Miami to Minneapolis. Me in the center's rec room, kids' laughter echoing as he whispered filthy promises that made me blush. Texts piled up like love letters. Saw a guy who looked like you today. Broke my heart a little. Or turbulence over Kansas. Thought of your hands steadying me. It felt solid, this transcontinental tether, until the first crack spiderwebbed in. A missed call from Evan. Hey, saw your post about the center. Proud of you. Coffee? That I ignored but guilt-gnawed anyway. Then Alex's schedule shifted. Layovers shrinking, silences stretching. Crew drama. He'd text, but his voice on calls carried static, like unspoken storms. The weekend I flew to LAX was meant to mend it. My first red-eye solo since Denver, heart hammering as I scanned the gate for his face. He was there, though grin splitting wide, scooping me into a hug that erased the miles. Seattle was our detour, a rental car hugging the coast, windows down to salt air and his playlist of the national crooning achy anthems. We hiked Discovery Park at dawn, hands linked on misty trails, stealing kisses behind ferns like teenagers. Marry me? He joked over clam chowder in Pike Place, tossing a fish like a ring, but his eyes held a question mark I filed away for later. Nights in a waterfront Airbnb, bodies slick and synced, his whispers turning tender. You're my anchor, Dylan. Don't let go. I didn't, not even when his phone buzzed late. A crew mate, he said, slurring something about a bar crawl, and he silenced it with a sheepish smile, pulling me closer. But lies have wings, and they outpaced us back to reality. 2 months in, the text tapered. Swamped, babe. Miss you. Calls cut short by gate alerts. I filled the voids with work, pouring code into an update that linked users to safe houses nationwide. But the center kids saw through me, the way I'd zone out during game night, staring at my phone like it owed me answers. Crush troubles? Little Jamie asked, all of 12 with eyes too wise, and I nodded, letting him braid friendship bracelets from yarn scraps. Love's like flying, he said sagely. Scary but worth the drop. Kid had no idea. The bomb dropped on a rainy Tuesday in October, me scrolling Insta during lunch break, when a tagged photo hit like downdraft. Alex, arms around a guy, tall, tattooed, smirking in a way that screamed mine. Caption layover legends, Chicago style. Crew love, no regrets. The timestamp? Last weekend when he'd called off sick. My thumb hovered, hard in freefall before liking it. Petty armor and texting. Nice company. Who's the friend? His reply pinged fast. What? Oh, that's just Mark from Ops. Harmless. But the photo lied. Body language screaming intimacy. And doubt coiled like smoke. Confrontation brewed over our next call. Him in a Dallas hotel. Me pacing my kitchen with the skyline mocking through the window. It's nothing, he insisted, voice pitching defensive. You're overthinking. But I wasn't. Google foo on a hunch pulled up Mark's profile. Posts from Pride and WeHo with Alex in half the frames. Hearts and fire emojis trailing like exhaust. How long? I demanded, voice cracking like cheap china. Silence stretched. Then, Dylan, it's complicated. The life pulls you in directions. Complicated. The word that gutted Evan and me, repackaged for round 2. So I'm the ground crew? The safe bet between flights. Tears burned, hot and humiliated. But he doubled down. You're more. But Mark gets it. The chaos, the no strings. No strings. The betrayal landed like emergency landing gear, jarring every bone. I hung up, phone sailing across the room to crack against the wall. Shards of screen mirroring my shatter. Nights dissolved into numb loops. Work, whiskey, walks along the Hudson where couples held hands and I hated them all. The center became refuge, kids' chaos a bomb. Teaching Jamie basic HTML, his giggles over glitchy rainbows pulling me from the pit. But Alex's ghost haunted. A voicemail left at 3 a.m. his time. Slurred sorries and I love yous that rang hollow. I deleted it, blocked the number, but unblocked for the flight update email. Rescheduled. See you in the air. Irony, thy name is Karma. The high point, or low, depending, came at a queer-lit reading in the village, me nursing a gin and tonic in the back, when Evan slid onto the stool beside me. Heard you split with the sky boy, he said, all faux concern. His hand on my arm too familiar. Turns out Alex had messaged him. Check on Dylan for me? A double betrayal that curdled my stomach. Get out, I hissed, shrugging him off, the room's murmurs fading as rage boiled over. Evan left with a sigh. You always pick the dramatic ones. But it was me who fled, into the November chill, hailing a cab to JFK because fuck it. I'd confront this midair if I had to. The flight was a United red-eye to San Francisco airport. Ironic, chasing closure on the wings of his old employer. I booked last minute, heart a war drum, and there he was at boarding. Alex, eyes widening in shock as I flashed my pass. Dylan? What the? No time for scripts. I brushed past, claiming my seat in economy. The cheap seats for the cheap thrills we'd played. He cornered me post-takeoff in the galley this time, not the lav. Public enough for restraint, private for pain. You came, he breathed, hope flickering before reality doused it. To end this, I corrected, voice steel despite the quiver. Mark? The crew love? You owe me the truth. It poured out then, ugly and unfiltered. The loneliness of layovers turning to liquid courage. Mark, a habit from training days. Easy because it didn't demand roots. I panicked, he admitted, tears tracking his cheeks under the galley fluorescence. You're real, Dylan, terrifying real. I thought I'd ruin you like I ruin everything. Ruin. The word echoed my dad's warnings about lifestyle choices back in Philly. The ones that pushed me out at 20. You already did? I whispered, but softer now, the fight bleeding into ache. His hand reached for mine, and I let it, just once, feeling the calluses from service carts, the pulse that matched my own frantic beat. I'm sorry, he choked. For the shock of it all. For making you doubt your worth. 30,000 feet up, with the captain calling for prep, we stood there, two fools in a tin can, mending what turbulence tore. Descent brought clarity, the Bay Area lights winking like hesitant stars. No grand gestures, no bathroom redux. Instead, as we taxied, he slipped a note into my hand. His Seattle address, scribbled with "Take your time. I'm grounding for you." I didn't call, not that night in the sterile hotel by the airport, nor the next week crashing with a college buddy in Oakland. Therapy helped. Finally booking that queer-affirming shrink in the Castro. Unpacking Evan's ghost and Alex's Jetstream heart. The center thrived too. Jamie's bracelet became my talisman. A reminder that love's not a solo flight. Months later, spring greening the parks, I boarded a Delta to SEA, not chasing but choosing. He met me at baggage, tentative smile cracking when I pulled him into a hug that said we try again. Slower. No rings yet, no vows etched in contrails, but coffee in Capitol Hill cafes. Hikes where hands linked without fear. Nights where whispers built instead of broke. The shocking truth? Love's not the mid-air collision, but the steady climb after, turbulent, yes, but with a co-pilot who stays strapped in. And in America's vast blue, from coast to coast, that's human enough for me.